Okay, Chuck Wilson, New Hope Community Church, connecting the dots. And we are moving back to America. We've been doing Israel, we're going back to America. So, here we go. Article, most Americans believe the U.S. economy is already in a recession. Duh. We already knew that. It's been in for several years, but of course the politicians changed the definition of recession to make it sound like it, but Americans are not buying it. Listen to this. As you will see below, most Americans believe the U.S. is currently experiencing a recession. Large employers have been conducting mass layoffs from coast to coast. The cost of living crisis is absolutely crushing millions upon millions of working families, and the number of business bankruptcies has jumped by more than 40% in just 1 year. And I got this out of, I don't see the name of the author, but it's Prophecy Newsletter. Considering that all of the economic pain that we are witnessing all around us, it shouldn't come as a surprise that 59% of Americans, let's call it 60% of Americans, believe the U.S. is currently in a recession. It's not hard to imagine, right? We are in a recession. It's crazy. In fact, here's another one in Prophecy Newsletter. U.S. household debt has soared to the highest level ever reported. Here we go. For the vast majority of us, our lifestyle simply cannot be funded by what we actually make. So we use debt to bridge the difference, and this has been particularly true during the cost of living crisis, the recession. Total household debt has now reached a grand total of $17.8 trillion. And we continue to pile it up with no end in sight. It's extremely alarming because it indicates that millions upon millions of households are literally living on the edge of financial disaster. One of the primary reasons why U.S. households are racking up so much debt these days is because the cost of living crisis has made it very difficult to make ends meet. Additionally, 44% of the survey respondents said they aren't making enough to take-home pay to cover their daily expenses. Did you catch that last sentence? Half of the entire nation is not making enough to bringing home enough take-home pay to cover their daily expenses. Unbelievable. Half of Americans can't make it. According to a recent survey, this was conducted by CNN, the cost of living crisis is a major issue for approximately 2/3 of the country. Even CNN can see it. That's pretty big. 2/3 of people say that the number one issue they face is the cost of living and paying their bills. The typical American is spending nearly $1,000 more per month compared with just 3 years ago just to pay living expenses. It's unbelievable. It's crashing. And on top of all this, this is, once again, Prophecy Newswatch. All these are from Prophecy Newswatch headlines. Why is the World Economic Forum warning about coming shock events? The World Economic Forum, WEF, warning about coming shock events because it's already here. We're already feeling the shocks, right? Earlier this week, the WEF released an ominous article warning that we must prepare for an era of shock events in the near future. The forum stated years ago that one of its goals was to remove America's title of global superpower. So we know they want to destroy the United States, and guess what? It's going to happen sooner or later. We're going to go down. We're not in Revelation, right? We already saw that. Since the pandemic eased, the reality is we haven't had an enduring global leadership on much, and it's hard to imagine that changing soon. This is partly because superpowers are terribly burdened with global wars and domestic challenges, the WEF warned. That's the United States warning us. They also warn that disinformation is threatening the biggest election year in history. I agree, but not in the way they're saying it. Hence the need for global censorship, both on the streets and online. They want to control everything we communicate. Only want what they want communicated, but anything we want to communicate, oh no, that's disinformation. Truth is disinformation, right? Civil unrest is rising and the WEF is prepared for dissent. Furthermore, they already recognize that both sides are going to fight over the results of the election, blah, blah, blah. They're trying to cause this to happen. And in the midst of all these things, look what's happening, BRICS. I'm shocked at how many people don't know what BRICS is. B-R-I-C-S. A BRICS currency could shake the dollar's dominance. This is by Joe Sullivan and some financial paper I was reading. BRICS is here, and most people don't even, most Americans are ignorant of this, but it's big. Russia is now spearheading the development of a new currency used for cross-border trade by the BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Just those 5 countries alone is a massive number of people. China and India alone is over 2 billion people, 2.5 billion people. But they're already inviting all these other countries in, African countries, South America. It's a gaining momentum. Brazil's president just said every night he asks himself, why all the countries have to base their trade on the dollar? You know, they're not happy about it. It's going to happen. BRICS is going to happen, but even beyond that, a one world currency is going to happen, and it won't be the dollar. BRICS is one of the destabilizations of the dollar. It's going to happen. Think of, once again, we've talked about this before, but what happened to the United Kingdom after World War II? The pound was replaced by the dollar, and the United Kingdom has never recovered. They're a second-class world superpower. You couldn't even call them that. They're not a third world country. We'll call them a second world country. That's what the United States is going to be overnight. It's going to happen because Revelation says there will be a one world government with a one world currency, and it's not going to be the dollar, baby. It's going to be based on 666. Whoever has the number 666 on their forehead or on their hand, they're going to be able to spend this one world currency. Nobody else will be able to do it. Don't take it. We'll talk about that another time. Don't take it. But we shouldn't be shocked by this. The warning, the WEF is warning of a coming shock. They're going to cause the shock. Believe me, they're going to destabilize. But we shouldn't be shocked. We should be prepared, and we should be not focusing on what's happening to our money, but on Jesus Christ and his coming back again. Our focus should be exactly what Jesus said it should be in Matthew 6:19 through 21. He says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Our focus isn't on our bank accounts or our retirement accounts. We should be, good stewards of what God has given us, but we're not freaking out when it's disappearing or spending quickly. Our focus is on our treasure in heaven. That should be our whole focus, on Jesus coming again, and our focus is on heaven and our treasure in heaven. That should be our number one focus.